Hello, my name is Brant Hunt, and my channel is Discerning What Is True. That's on Facebook. It's actually on Odyssey and on YouTube. And I'm going to be reading a chapter tonight, Creating a New Civilization, The Politics of the Third Way. This is written by Alvin Toffler, Toffleur. Some of you may know who he is. Um, he's the one who talked about the things of the future. And so we're going to read this particular chapter, which is chapter 4, The Way We Make Wealth. So we're going to read this here in the book. So here we go. In 1956, the Soviet Union strongman Nicholas Khrushchev uttered his famous boast, "We will bury you." What he meant was that communism would outstrip capitalism economically in the years ahead. The boast carried with it as well the threat of military defeat and reverberated around the world. Yet few at the time even dimly suspected just how a revolution in the West system for creating wealth would transform the world military balance and the nature of warfare itself. What Khrushchev and most Americans didn't know was that 1956 was also the first year in which white-collar and service employees outnumbered blue-collar factory workers in the United States. An early indication that the second wave smokestack economy was fading and a new third wave economy was beginning to be born. To understand the extraordinary changes that had since occurred and anticipated the event more dramatically changes that lied ahead, we need to look at the main features of the new third wave economy. Here then is the risk of minor repetition are the keys not only to business profitability and a global competitiveness, but also to the political economy of the 21st century. Next section is called Factors of Production. While land, labor, raw material, and capital were the main factors of production in the second wave economy of the past, knowledge, broadly defined here to include data, information, images, symbols, culture, ideology, and values, is now the central resource of the third wave economy. As we have seen, the appropriate data, information, and or knowledge make it possible to reduce all the other inputs used to create wealth. But the concept of knowledge as the ultimate substitute is still not widely grasped. Most economists and accountants are mystified and put off by this idea because it is hard to quantify. What makes the third wave economy revolutionary is the fact that while land, labor, raw materials, and perhaps even capital can be regarded as finite resources, knowledge is for all intents inexhaustible. Unlike a single blast furnace or assembly line, knowledge can be used by two companies at the same time, and they can use it to generate still more knowledge. Thus, second wave economy theories based on finite, inexhaustible inputs are inapplicable to the third wave economies. Number two, intangible values. While the value of second wave company might be measured in terms of its hard assets like buildings, machines, stocks, inventory, the value of successful third wave firms increasingly lies in their capacity for acquiring, generating, distributing, and applying knowledge strategically and operational. The real value of companies like Compaq or Kodak or Hitachi or Siemens depends more on the ideas, insights, and the information in the heads of their employees and in the data banks and patents these companies control than on the trucks, assembly lines, and other physical assets they may have. Thus, capital itself is now increasingly based on intangibles. It's interesting, he talked about Compaq, which Compaq I don't think is in business anymore. And also Kodak is no longer in business. Now, I know that Hitachi is still in business and Siemens is still in business, but I know pretty much that Kodak is gone, unless I know it went bankrupt, which used to be called the Eastman Kodak Company. Let's continue. The next section is called demassification. Mass production, the defining characteristic of the second wave economy, become increasingly obsolete as firms install informational intensity, often robotized manufacturing systems capable of endless cheap variation, even customization. The revolutionary result is, in fact, the demassification of mass production. The shift towards smart, flex tech promotes diversity and feeds consumer choice to the point that Walmart stores can offer the buyer nearly 110,000 products various types, sizes, models, and colors to choose among. But Walmart's a mass merchandiser. Increasing the mass market itself is breaking up differential niches as customers need diverse and better information makes it possible for business to identify and serve micro markets, specifically stores, boutiques, superstores, TV home shopping systems, computer-based buying, direct mail, and other industry. Other systems provide a growing diversity of channels through which producers can distribute their wares to customers in a recently demystified marketplace. When we wrote Future Shock in the late 1960s, visionary marketers began talking about market segmentation. They no longer focus on segments, but on particles, family units, and even single individuals. Meanwhile, advertising is targeting as smaller and smaller market segments reach through its increasingly demystified media. The dramatic the breakup of mass audience is unscored by the crisis of the once great TV networks such as ABC, CBS, and NBC at a time when Telecommunications Incorporated of Denver announced a fiber optic network capable of providing viewers with 500 interacting channels of television. Such systems means that sellers will be able to target buyers with even greater precision. The simultaneous dismassification of production, distributing, and communication revolutionized by the economy and shifts from homogeneity toward extreme heterogeneity. Work, section 4. Work itself is transformed. Low-skilled, essential, interchangeable muscle work drove the second wave. Mass factory-style education prepared workers for routine, repetitive labor. By contrast, the third wave is accomplished by a growing on interchangeability of labor and skill requirements skyrocketed. Muscle power is essentially fungible. There is a low-skilled worker who quits or is fired can be replaced quickly and with little cost. By contrast, the rising level of specialized skills required in the third wave economy makes finding the right person with the right skills harder and more costly. Although he or she may face competition from many other jobless muscle workers, a janitor laid off from a giant defense firm can take a janitor job in a school or an insurance office. By contrast, the electronics engineer who has spent years building satellites does not necessarily have the skills needed by a firm doing environmental engineering. A gynecologist can do brain surgery. Rising specialization and rapid changes in skill requirement reduces the interchangeable of labor. As economics advance, a further change is seen in the ratio of direct labor to indirect labor. In traditional terms, direct or productive workers are those on the factory floor who actually make the product. They produce added value, and everyone else is described as non-productive or making only an indirect contribution. Today, these distinctions blur as the ratio of factory production workers to white-collar, technical, and professional workers decline even on the factory floor, at least at much value produced by indirect or by direct labor, if not more. Number 5, invocation. With the economies of Japan and Europe recovered from World War II, American firms face heavier competitive fire. Constantly, invocation is needed to compete. New ideas for products, technologies and processes, marketing, finances. Something on the order of 1,000 new products are introduced into America's supermarkets every month. Even before the Model 485 computer replaced the Model 386, and the new 586 chip was on its way. Thus, smart firms encourage workers to take initiative, come up with new ideas, and even if necessary, to throw away the rule book. Number 6, scale. Work units shrink. The scale of operation is minimized along with many of the products. Vast number of workers doing much the same muscle work are replaced by small differential work teams. Big businesses are getting smaller. Small businesses are multiplying. IBM, with 370,000 employees, is being pecked to death by small manufacturers around the world. To survive, it lays off many workers and splits itself into 13 different smaller business units. In the third wave system, economics of scale are permanently outweighed by diseconomies of complexity. The more complicated the firm, the more the left hand can't anticipate what the right hand will do next. Things fall through the cracks. Problems proliferate that may outweigh any of the presumed benefits of sheer mass. The old idea that bigger is necessarily better is increasingly outmodeled. chapter 7, I mean, it's not chapter 7, but section 7, is organization. Struggling to adapt to high-speed changes, companies are racing to dismantle their bureaucratic self-wave structures. Industrial air companies typically had similar tables of organization, pyramidal, monolithical, bureaucratic. Today, markets, technologies, and consumers need change to so rapidly put such varied pressure on the firm that bureaucratic uniformity is on its way out. The search is on for wholly new forms of organization, re-engineering, for example. The current buzzword in management seeks to restructure the firm around processes rather than markets on compartmentalization specialties. Relatively standardized structures give way to matrix organizations, ad hoc directed, project teams, profit centers, as well as to growing diversity of strategic alliances, joint ventures, and consortiums. Many of these crossing national boundaries, since markets change constantly, position are less important than flexibility and maneuverability. Number 8, system integration. Rising complexity in the economy calls for more sophisticated integration and management. It's not a typical case for Nabisco. The food company has to fill 500 orders a day for literally hundreds of thousands of different products that must be shipped from 49 factories and 13 distribution centers. At the same time, take into account 30,000 different sales promotional deals with its customers. Managing such a complexity requires new forms of leadership and extremely high order of system integration. That in turn requires greater and greater volumes of information to pulse through the organization. Infrastructure, number 9. To hold everything together, to track all the components and products, to synchronize deliveries, to keep engineers and marketers apprised of each other's plans, to alert the R&D people to the needs of the manufacturing side, and above all, to give management a coherent picture of what is going on. Billions of dollars are being poured into electronic networks that link computers, database, and other informational technologies together. This vast electronic information structure, frequently satellite-based, knits whole companies together, often linking them into the computers and network of suppliers and customers as well. Other networks. Japan has targeted $250 billion to develop better, faster networks over the next 25 years. The White House now is promoting this controversial plan for an information superhighway. Whatever we may think of the plan or the metaphor, one thing is clear: electronic pathways from the essential infrastructure of the third wave economy. Acceleration, part number 10. All these changes further accelerate the pace of operations and transactions. Economies of speed replace economies of scale. Competition is so intense that the speeds required so high that the old time is money rule is increasingly updated to every interval of time is worth more than the one before it. Time becomes a critical variable as reflected in its just-in-time deliveries and a pressure to reduce DIP or decisions in process. Slow, sequential, step-by-step engineering is replaced by simultaneous engineering. Companies wage time-based competition, expressing in the new urgency. That is Dwayne Peterson, a top executive at Merrill Lynch, says money moves at the speed of light. Information has to move faster, thus accelerating push third wave business closer and closer to real time. Taking together these 10 fixtures of the third wave economy, among many others, adds up to a monumental change in how wealth is created. The conversion of the United States, Japan, and Europe to this new system, though not yet complete, represents the single most important change in the global economy since the spread of factories brought about by the Industrial Revolution. This historical transformation, picking up speed in the early mid-70s, was already fairly well advanced by the 1990s. Unfortunately, most of Americans' economy thinking was left behind. So that's chapter 4 there of this particular book, Create a New Civilization, the Politics of the Third Wave. I'm trying to get the printing date of this book. It's 1994 and 1995. So this book is approximately going to be 30 years in 2 years. It'll be 30 years old in 2 years. So that's what I've got to share with you. I think this book is kind of interesting. I don't know if it, I see these things, what he's talking about now. But interesting, this simply is that, again, it says about just-in-time deliveries and all that kind of stuff. Again, It's all based upon either electronics, computers, and all this stuff. But if there's a quote unquote electrical down deal, you're going to have issues. You see, the power that is dependent upon power, you see. And so that's one of the negatives about it. But anyway, I wanted to share this with you because, in fact, Alvin Tonkin has been pushing this whole issue for quite a while. So have a good night. We'll talk to you later. Take care. Thank you for listening.